Questions are starting to mount within Democratic circles over the mental fitness of some big-name party leaders. We just saw Joe Biden stumble down the stairs to greet G7 leaders in Japan. But scenes like this aren't new. We've seen our 80-year-old president look confused and off balance far too many times. And Biden's not the only Democrat whose recent behavior has caused concern. A new op-ed in National Review points out that the Democrats have a growing cognitive problem. One of the other Democrats mentioned in that piece is Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman. We're now learning that Fetterman's office is doctoring his quotes on the Senate floor to make him sound more coherent, including this comment from yesterday.
The entire GOP debt ceiling negotiation is a sad charade. And that's exactly what's wrong in Washington. We're playing with the livelihoods of millions just so the GOP can just turn the screws against hungry Americans. This is the whole reason why the 14th Amendment exists. We need to be prepared to be using it. Again, remember, say that again. We must be prepared in order to use it.
California Senator Dianne Feinstein is another Democrat getting attention. The 89-year-old's health has been in question after a months-long absence from Capitol Hill. Feinstein's office said at the time that she was dealing with a case of shingles, but they've since confirmed that the senator was also dealing with Ramsay-Hunt syndrome and encephalitis. California Democrat Katie Porter is running for her Senate seat and says it's time for a change.
I do think that the Senate and our country needs to look forward and think about how are we going to address these issues going forward. We're going to have more people who are absent. We are going to have more people who fall sick. We are going to have more senators who age, given the age of the body. I think we do need to have some policies like every other workplace in America to think about what are you going to do when someone becomes infirm, either for the short term or the long term.
And I think the question remains, Tommy, that for those on the left that kept arguing that any type of questioning was irredeemably cruel, well, it seems like they've joined that body, and I think it points to the question simply being neutral.
Right. Well, and it's also important to know that some people have some aspirations to take some seats here. So I think that probably also comes into play. But this should not be a partisan issue, right? You should be able to serve the constituents that you were elected to serve. And if you're unable to do that, the noble thing to do would be to step down with grace and resign with grace. Allow somebody else to fill that position. Allow somebody else to represent your constituents. Even if it's not a way that I want them to be represented as a Republican, it doesn't matter. These people deserve to have somebody that can be there, that can do the job. So we have to talk about this obviously with some sensitivity. We know that we all have aging people in our lives. We feel horribly watching them age, but you shouldn't be in a position where you're letting your constituents down. You're not doing your job. I also think, well, I'm sure we'll have this discussion, but when it comes to Dianne Feinstein, this is a pioneer, right? Someone that deserves the utmost respect, has built a legacy. And to me, the fact that Nancy Pelosi may be propping her up because she wants Adam Schiff in that position is disgusting to me, quite frankly.
You know, I was looking back at, you look at FDR, who died in office in his early 60s, right? And then I looked at Ronald Reagan's farewell speech, and I looked at the Berlin Wall speech, which he gave when he was 76 years old. And later on, we learned that he was struggling with some health issues later on in his presidency. But when you look at those speeches and you look at that farewell speech, he was very sharp at least he was able to, have the strength to function and do that job in that way and create some of those truly memorable historic moments and speeches. I think this is such an across the aisle issue. Every one of us, when we were just watching those clips of John Fetterman, it makes you uncomfortable. You feel bad for this man. I recently ran into him in Washington, introduced myself, said hello. He was very disoriented. It is apparent in everything that he does. Bernie Sanders is looking at his shoes, The other gentleman on the right-hand side of the screen is like, I think I have some in my pocket. They're uncomfortable. I don't know what the answer is. I mean, maybe there is some way to have some kind of very neutral medical group that says when there's a situation like this, we have to do some kind of evaluation that cannot have any context of politics at all, and maybe put forward a report. This person is or isn't able to serve in their job. But I think Katie Porter makes a great point. If any one of us wasn't able to function in our job, it would be, there would be a discussion. I'm sorry, you can't do this anymore. Yeah.
So my concern with, it's a great idea where you have sort of a neutral medical body, but that's going to get weaponized somehow, right? I mean, everything always gets weaponized. The only answer here really for the age issue, and it'd be impossible to do. I mean, half our country can't even agree what a woman is a constitutional amendment. I mean, when you go back to 1787, people weren't living until 80, 90 years old.
But some people are sharp as a tack at 94.
Right, but
and some people are not at 78.
You have to have an objective measure or else you allow for weaponization. That's the only thing that I can say safely is going to create an objective measure where it cannot be abused by the government.
Yeah. And some reporting on it would also be helpful. I mean, we cover this here at Fox. We just did a whole segment on it. The American people are clearly interested. We've seen in polling that they question the abilities of Joe Biden going forward. But I just wonder why we don't see the same level of apocalyptic headlines on this issue. I mean, my former boss, Trump, when I worked there, he had a hydroplane down a ramp. It was slippery. And you'll remember the New York Times headline, Trump's halting walk down ramp raises new health questions. The president also appeared to have trouble raising a glass of water. No, he raised plenty of glasses of water. That was never an issue. That's patently absurd. CNN even ran a whole segment as to whether he was scared of stairs. But Biden stumbles down the stairs today. And look, I stumble down the stairs. I'm not suggesting that that's indicative of a health issue, but where's the apoplectic headlines? They just don't exist in the way that they did for a Republican.
That's right. And I think about, too, the circles that surround these people who are clearly unwilling or unable, perhaps in their disorientation, to release that power. Where are the confidants and the counselors that say behind closed doors, it's time? Because if the media doesn't have
family members even.
Exactly.
Right.
If the media is not covering it, how do voters know, and how do voters have a choice when there's no term limits or people have this, again, refusal to relinquish? Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.